Welcome to BD4, an RJ Carbone podcast. BD4, where there is no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. We also do MMA. Yanks every series, Knicks every game, MMA on occasion. BD4 is a 5-star show on Apple Podcasts, also available in video format on YouTube and Spotify. So thanks for stopping by, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Champion of the world, turning, looking, see ya!
Anthony for three, bang! That one goes down, and the game is tied!
Time! Penetrates, creates, and showing some dexterity as well with the left hand.
Yankees win!
All right, welcome to episode 476. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, RJ Carbone, and you are listening once again to episode 476 of BD4. Thanks for tuning into the podcast. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it, man. A lot going on. A lot to discuss in this episode. Now, if you don't want to hear nonsense about popular television series, then I suggest skipping ahead down below in the timestamps in the description of this video or audio, wherever you're listening to this or watching this on. You can always just go down the timestamps right now and skip ahead to when we start talking Knicks, because it's going to be about, I would say, 20 minutes. But I watched some good TV last night. And I want to start off by talking about the shows I watched. If you're a fan of The Last of Us, and you probably are, because who's not right now, episode 4, a good episode, another good episode. In my opinion, it was way better than last week's episode. I know a lot of people, I don't know the stats on it, but I think people enjoyed last week's episode. I thought it was boring. I hate when shows go off track and don't focus on the main story, but whatever. This week's episode I thought was very good. A lot of bonding, Jesus, fucking character development. You know, Joel and Ellie are driving to Wyoming. Joel, in the beginning of this episode, is telling the story of how he and Tommy separated, how Tommy joins the Fireflies, and you get that scene with the Playboy magazine in the car. That was pretty funny. But when they stop for the night, Joel tells her, don't trust anybody. And to me, that's what makes these shows, these apocalyptic shows, so great. Never being able to trust the average human being. Because even in today's crazy whack job society, we trust people to some degree, I trust the Uber driver to get me home safely. In this world, you hitch a ride from somebody, there's a very decent chance that you're probably getting robbed, killed, eaten, So he tells her, don't trust people. So the next day, of course, we're in Kansas City, and we run into this guy, and he's begging for help on the side of the road. But Joel drives right past him. He does not help him, and unfortunately drives right into this trap, and he crashes the truck. So after a shootout with a couple of other men who come out of hiding, Joel shoots them both dead. And then the third one, the one who initially pretended to ask for help, he attacks Joel. Eventually, Ellie saves the day, shoots him, and then Joel eventually finishes the job and kills him a few minutes later when he tells Ellie to leave the room so he can take care of the business. Anyways, we get that scene when she's kind of crying, and she's just experienced her first, holy crap moment with him. Anyways, we find out that those guys were a part of a group that I guess took the vacant city from the government or whatever. But they're not Fireflies. They're not the Fedra people either. They're just this group. And this group has a leader, and her name is Kathleen. And Kathleen's looking for the people who executed her brother. I believe that's what the storyline was. And she thinks that whoever killed the beggar dude, right, is probably them. Obviously, we know that that's not the case, that it was Joel and Ellie who killed the beggar. And by the end of the episode, you see that Joel and Ellie they wake up being held hostage in this abandoned apartment that they found. And I think the people that they wake up to are the two people that Kathleen, as I just spit, was after. So it's good. That was basically the episode. It's good. I like it. I'm enjoying it. We didn't get any infected in this one, but we did find out about a new variant of them when they show us like that there's one kind of developing from underground. So that was interesting. We're probably going to get to see that next episode. Also, I enjoyed how you can kind of see the bond developing between Joel and Ellie. It's starting to come together. Joel and Ellie throughout this entire episode had some banter moments, and Ellie's trying to make him laugh. He wouldn't laugh the entire episode, but by the very end, before they go to sleep at night, she finally gets him to loosen up, and he's cracking up at her was that book of puns or whatever. So they go to sleep laughing. So yeah, you could see it coming together. They're developing a relationship, and I enjoyed it. Kind of ends on a cliffhanger there. It went quick too. I didn't expect the credits to roll there, so I was wanting more. But it was a good episode of TV, episode 4 of The Last of Us. So I enjoyed that. I also enjoyed 1923. Now, if you don't know what that is, it is a spin-off of the show Yellowstone. If you haven't seen Yellowstone, watch Yellowstone. If you have watched Yellowstone, don't watch 1923 unless you've seen 1883, because that's kind of makes sense to watch it in that order. But episode 5, the first episode back from the winter break. Good show, man. And I feel bad for Yellowstone viewers who don't watch their spinoffs, because they're very good quality. They're good TV. But in this one, you see a few storylines. We get to the, Harrison Ford, his character is bedridden. He's still trying to recover. His wife, Kara, is doing her duties on the ranch and prepping to fight against the Game of Thrones dude. Tiana, the nun school student, she's on the run. Emma Dutton is dying of grief. But I want to start with that Tiana storyline, because it made up a good chunk of this episode. We get to the first scene there. We find out she killed 2 nuns, not just the one who beat her. We saw her die on camera. I think she suffocated her, but also we saw the dead body of the nun who, I guess, sexually assaulted her. We see this in the morning. The daddy priest, I don't know, the leader, the mean guy, the head of everything, he finds out. And the nuns are screaming, the students are scared, and he eventually sends, 3 jackasses on horseback to find her. But very cleverly, I think Tiana covers her track with like a branch tied to her waist, so it brushes up against the ground that she walks on. But the we'll call him Daddy Priest. He tries beating answers out of Tiana's best friend. But when she doesn't give in and she eventually curses at him in her native language, he kills her. I'm pretty sure he killed her by stomping her face. They cut to black after that. So Tiana's on the run. She's scared, terrified. She's sleeping on top of this like flat top rock to avoid a wolf. And in the morning, she awakes, and the wolf's gone. But she meets this guy. Hank, some Native American dude. And this is when we get the official confirmation who Tiana is. And it is confirmed that she's Rainwater, the dude from Yellowstone, his great-great-grandmother, I want to say. Give or take a generation. She's a grandmother of his. Now, this guy Hank has all these sheep with him. And I want to believe that he got the sheep from Harrison Ford's character, Jacob. I'm still trying to learn all the names. But I'm thinking that he's eventually going to take her to the Dutton Ranch. And that's kind of how those stories will connect. So, and I also have a feeling that there's going to be some violence, not just between the Dutton Ranch and Banner, the Game of Thrones dude, and his associate, but also between the Native Americans versus the nun school people who are after her. Just judging by Hank's reaction when he saw the bruises on Tiana, I think there's going to be something there. So that was that storyline. I'm very excited to see how they, intersect with the Duttons. And then we got the Spencer story. He's struggling in the beginning to find a quick passage home, but he finally meets this tugboat captain who needs an extra hand. So he agrees to go on board with him. It's not a pleasant way through, but it's a way. So he pays him money, and they go about their journey. Now, they hint it through about every scene this captain is in that he's about to drop dead. They clearly foreshadow that, but it was good. I think he's got like tuberculosis or something. Tuberculosis. He's the guy's coughing up blood. He's just hacking nonstop. Also, the actor who plays him is it's the same guy who was one of my favorite characters in Prison Break. He plays the Italian-American mobster in that show. Anyways, before they leave, Spencer tries to actually leave Alex there because he's worried that she'll get hurt or worse. But, of course, she insists, and they depart together. So they both leave, and eventually, during their adventure to this canal that they're going to so he can eventually get to America, the captain does die while on watch. So Spencer tries to take over the ship. He calls for help on the distress signal and comes across, a ghost ship, which they explain what a ghost ship is in the episode. But eventually he can't get out of the way, and their little tugboat collides with the gigantic ship. And at the end, we cut to this scene at the end of the episode again, and we see a shot of the boat. It's quiet. It's just completely capsized. No signs of life. No yells for help. There's no noise. Nothing but just the small waves crashing up against the capsized tugboat. So it looks to me, unless Alex and Spencer swam away somewhere, that they're dead. And I think they are dead because if I remember correctly, in the first episode and one of the beginning scenes, Elsa, who is Spencer's brother, she's narrating because she's dead, but she's narrating the show, and I think she says that one of the Dutton brothers do not survive. Like she says something like they don't survive to see their own children grow, which could mean that the other Dutton dies. Because all I gotta go back and listen to it, but yeah, it seems like he's dead, and so just like that, you've got 3 pretty large deaths in 1923's return episode. Emma Dutton, the Spencer's sister-in-law, shoots herself in the beginning, grieving over her dead husband, he was John Dutton the First. And then Spencer and Alex, unfortunately, and I love their scenes. I did. I thought that was a great storyline to follow, but it's good, and it's gonna crush Kara, man, because she she got some good news on the day, right? She found out her great-nephew's wife was pregnant with who I believe is going to become John Dutton II, who goes on to be Kevin Costner's John Dutton's father. You know, she gets that good news. She sees them out in the field marrying. She's smiling at it. John's making progress. And at the end, she finally gets the return letter from Spencer that he's on his way home and he's happy and hopeful. Or she's happy and hopeful that he's on his way home. And she's, you know, now she's going to, I don't know how she's going to find out, but she's not going to get him. You know, and hope is the big theme throughout the show. And it's going to be interesting because the war is brewing between the Duttons and the Game of Thrones guy, Banner. You know, you have Ford, who's pretty much advising Kara throughout the episode, you know, how to go about this. And it's going to be tough, though, because this guy Banner now he's got money and power, right, with this new associate by his side. I think the guy's name is Westfield or Whitfield. He's a powerful guy. He seems pretty evil, and he's determined. And I love the scene where Banner gets his new home from the guy, and he's so amazed and like wowed at all the resources, like the running water and electricity. It's just pretty cool. It really makes you appreciate those things that we just, you know, take for granted in everyday life in 2023. But and I think that's the same home. That's the home on the Stafford Ranch, the home that was abandoned by Elizabeth's mother. Elizabeth is Jack Dutton's wife, the kid who wants, you know, revenge all the time. But I'm loving it, man. I'm loving it, and I am upset about that death because I was a big fan of their storyline. But the Dutton tree is continuing to deteriorate, and it's been a very melancholy universe. You know, if you watch these two spinoffs, they've been heavy. But yeah, I just wanted to share my thoughts on the two shows that I've been watching. I'm also watching The Wire, which I'm very much enjoying. It's a great show. But let's talk basketball. We'll get to our first break, come back, and I promise we'll talk some hoops. Let's do it. Let's get to the Knicks. Let's get to the Kyrie Irving stuff because more happened on that front line. When we return from break, we'll talk about that real briefly. Hey guys, so if you are a listener of the podcast often and you want to know where to find me on social media, you can find me on Facebook at BD4. You can find me on Twitter at BD4Pod. And you can also find me on Instagram at Rob J. Carbone. All right, so welcome back to the show. I'm your host, RJ Carbone. Thank you for stopping by. So Kyrie Irving traded to the Mavericks. The Nets didn't really get much. They got Dinwiddie, they got Finney-Smith, and like a late first, or not late, it was a first round pick, but it's like 2029, I want to say. I don't know how that's going to go down. You know, how long before Kyrie is in a dispute with Cuban, or maybe with Luka for being on the ball so much, or maybe he doesn't like the state of Texas because it's, I don't know, it's too Republican or some shit. I'm sure he'll ask out sooner or later. Listen, I want the best for this kid. I do. I think he's a hell of a ball player, and honestly, I personally couldn't care less of the specifics of what he says. You know, I think you should be able to speak your mind, and I'm not like the masses where I'm getting triggered by his social media or his comments to the press or wherever. I think, you know, say what you like. That is his freedom. And it's also your choice whether or not to get offended by it. It's kind of like welcome to the real world. I have said before that I wish sports leagues weren't so liberal and they were more like the UFC, where you can say whatever the hell you want with no filter and nobody pretends to be outraged. If you watch the UFC, they say shit 10 times worse than what Kyrie says all the time, and people laugh it off. People don't give a shit. My issue with Kyrie Irving is that he simply just doesn't play basketball. Whether it's because he's injured, protesting, saying this dumb shit, he doesn't play games. We did the math the other day. He's played in 49% of his games since signing that 4-year contract. So it's not specifically the things he says for me. I don't care. I don't agree with them. It's very stupid and dumb what he says. Mean, yeah, whatever. But it's the fact that he's so unaware that it's going to get him in trouble. Or maybe he's aware, but he does it anyway. That's what makes him toxic. Is that he knows these comments will affect the on-court stuff, but he does it anyway. You understand? And there's also the fact that he will eventually decide to leave your franchise if he wakes up in a bad mood one day. There's always that. It sucks, man, because it's always the ones with so much talent. You know, you think about Odell Beckham in New York. You think about Antonio Brown's career. It's always the guy with so much talent. Kanye West made great music, right? That it's always, wherever it is, it's always the guys with a ton of talent that just try to cause a stir or be this figure for whatever reason. And Kyrie Irving could be so good for the game of basketball if he just realized, you know, where he is. The NBA is a very liberal league. It's very strict. You know, you got to be professionally correct in this era, whether or not I agree with it or not. You should know that you probably shouldn't say that because they're going to suspend you or do this to you. That's something you need to know, and I'm sure he does know, but does not care. That's what makes him toxic. Hey, the Pro Bowl was last night. Oh my God. What's it, fucking flag football now? I haven't watched the Pro Bowl since maybe the 2010s. I think actually the last one I watched was 2020. I remember because it was the night Kobe died. But it was like, if that was the last year I watched, and it was like normal. It was like regular 4 quarters, 15-minute quarters. The format was a normal game. This is like a 6-on-6 flag football game. It was just awful to watch. It was Peyton versus Eli. Plus, the game was on like 4 different networks, and one of them was on ESPN. And ESPN was supposed to host the Knicks-Sixers game. So apparently the NFL has that much power to where they were still airing on ESPN while they were on 3 other platforms. So it took away like the first 6 or 7 minutes of the Knicks-Sixers game. And normally I wouldn't give a damn about that because I just watch it on the home MSG network, but my cable provider took away MSG, and I recently stopped paying $80 a month for MSG because it's way too much money for one channel, so I just stream it online usually. And when you stream it online, you don't always get the home network. All right, we'll talk Knicks. Yeah, it was a big win. Huge. Biggest win of the season, perhaps. Again, because the way they lost on Saturday night, it was an awful way to lose against a very beatable Clippers team. They fall back down to 2 games out of the 6th seed at the time. But then you find out Miami lost, so that was good. But it looked grim early in last night's game. It looked very bad. Even before the game, you get the late scratch from R.J. Barrett because he was sick. Is it me, or every time he struggles, he's sick? Is that going to be a new narrative Knicks fans who are like super pro RJ go with? It was last time when he had the flu. You couldn't criticize the guy. But the Knicks pulled off a significant comeback win behind key plays from Brunson, Randle, but mostly big-time contributions from the second unit. The first quarter, it was a slow start for both offenses, but eventually Philly found it. Embiid was cooking. The Knicks looked lost without Mitchell Robinson. Sims was in foul trouble. Hartenstein checks in. Then the Sixers, not too long after, go on this 12-0 run. This guy Melton apparently turns into Steph Curry every time we play this team. James Harden is distributing. He's working the kickouts, no-look times down low, coming off double screens, just racking up assists with craftiness and his high basketball IQ. So the Knicks go down as many as 21 points in the first quarter. But then they get this 9-0 run that pulls them within single digits. And then that eventually extends into the second quarter where they go on this 17-0 run. The second quarter comes. The Knicks come within 3 points just a few minutes in after the run. That's when Doc Rivers calls a timeout. The Knicks remain competitive throughout the first half. And by halftime, they're only down 2 points, 53-51. Third quarter opens up with a Randle step-back triple. That puts the Knicks ahead. But then the first unit starts to struggle again. Bad turnovers. You had the Brunson 5-second call under the basket. That's always unacceptable. Fouls. A lot of fouls in this game. Knicks-Philly is usually a very physical game anyway. But the Knicks eventually do find some rhythm at the end of the period between Quickly, Randle, and Hartenstein. They enter the fourth quarter on this 9-3 run. And in the fourth quarter, you get some big-time plays, a number of big baskets from Evan Fournier, Deuce McBride, helping the Knicks take a lead. Also, Obi Toppin and Hartenstein help storm a 10-0 run in the period. Just like that, the Knicks eventually pick up a big win behind their bench, with the final score being 108-97 over the Sixers at Madison Square Garden last night. So, you consider there is no R.J. Barrett, no Mitchell Robinson, of course. You're facing another top team in the conference. It's the second night of a back-to-back. And the Knicks get it done. Pretty impressive. Pretty damn impressive, and you gotta give props. So let's talk about it when we return from break. Knicks, Sixers. Stay with us. Be right back. BD4 is located on many different platforms. You can listen to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, and if you do there, be sure to give us a 5-star rating and review. You can listen to it on Spotify, but you can also watch the podcast on both Spotify and YouTube. BD4 is available on many other platforms as well. All you got to do is search it up. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and much more. All right, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, RJ Carbone. You are listening to episode 476 of BD4. So, I want to start... it makes sense that we start with the bench unit, right? The bench showed up. They showed up, and they were actually the ones to carry the starters last night. The Knicks bench scored 37 points. I don't remember the last time we saw that, especially with without Quickly playing alongside them. They shot the ball 9 of 17 from 3. And they were a plus 98 total. Meanwhile, the first unit struggled mightily on both ends. They were 3 out of 19 from 3. They were also a minus 43 in the box score. All 4 guys on the second unit were positive, and all 5 guys in the starting lineup were negative. And it was one that matched the eye test, And it wasn't like it was just one guy. No. Everybody on that bench produced. Deuce McBride providing some offense lately. Evan Fournier giving you floor spacing last night. Obi Toppin with a big fourth quarter 3-point ball. Isaiah Hartenstein all over the boards. It was a great first half from the bench. Great second half from the bench as well. They led that 17-0 run in the first half. And then they helped pull away, getting big minutes in the fourth quarter. And a lot of that damage they were doing last night was with Philly's top weapons still on the floor. It wasn't only against the second unit for Philly. They played against Embiid and Harden, and they held their own. I want to go over some individual efforts off the bench, but I want to save Evan Fournier for last because I thought he was the best one last night. But we'll start with Deuce because he was almost just as impactful. Deuce McBride, 14 points last night, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. He shot the ball 5 out of 6 from the free throw line, 3 out of 6 from the 3-point line. Was a plus 34 in 23 minutes last night. Deuce McBride, this is a kid who, normally doesn't give you much offense, right? But lately, you're seeing the confidence with how aggressive he's been off the catch and shoot, And he's even, he's probing off the dribble a little bit too. 8 points on 3 of 3 shooting against Miami. 8 points on 3 of 6 against the Clippers. And then last night, 14 on 3 of 8. He's shooting 7 of 11 from 3 during that span. He's knocking down his open looks lately, man. It's great to see, especially with Quickly struggling. Last night just 5 points, the night before 8 points. It's kind of that next man up philosophy. I got your back. He wrapped up the first quarter with that 3-point ball to bring the Knicks within 9 points. And he also came through in the fourth quarter with 7 of his 14 points. I think with 10 minutes or so left in the game, the Knicks are down 6. Deuce cuts it in half. He cuts it in half when you get that great ball movement across the court from Fournier to Hartenstein to Deuce in the corner. I kind of briefly mentioned it the other night how I love ball movement when guys don't really have to dribble, and you saw that right there. A little later in the period, with 3 minutes and change remaining, Fournier cuts through the defense, and he kicks weak side to Deuce for the spot up. Knocks it down, puts the Knicks up 98-90. And he continued to play great defense. I thought he and Grimes did a very nice job on James Harden, giving him problems. Harden was just 12 points last night on 4 of 11 shooting. His 1v1 defense in the point of attack, of course, is always going to be there. But his help defense last night was great too. I thought Isaiah Hartenstein, 6 points, 14 rebounds, an assist, and a block. Played a good game, man. He continues to improve these last 2 weeks. What I liked especially last night from Hartenstein was his hustle. He always hustles. He always plays hard. But it's easier to praise his hustle when he's productive, right? And he busted his ass last night. No question. The rebounding was terrific, especially against a guy like Embiid to do what he did on the glass last night. But he was contesting shots too, running the floor, getting the ball out, everything. It was effort. In the fourth quarter, there were about 8 minutes remaining. The Knicks are up 2. Hartenstein grabs the board away from the Sixers after an excellent contest down low on Thibodeau. There was another instance after a bad turnover for the Knicks. I loved seeing Isaiah Hartenstein sprinting down the court back on the other end. He runs the floor down the middle, contests a shot on Melton, and forces another big miss. And then he picked up a hustle rebound. He picked up a hustle rebound a little later over Embiid when Brunson missed that free throw. Now, Embiid still finished with 31 points, 14 rebounds, but that's just who he is. That's basically what the kid averages. So I'll take that from Hartenstein all day. Embiid also shot it poorly. He was 6 out of 16, and he missed 3 out of his 4 threes. He got most of his baskets after drawing contact on the 2 Knick bigs at the foul line. But, those fouls, he had 6, Hartenstein. That says to me that he was playing hard and he emptied the tank. So I was very, very impressed with what the Knicks got from Hartenstein last night. Obi Toppin, not much, but he did knock down the big 3-point ball early fourth quarter. And then, obviously, we get to Evan Fournier, who gets a game ball from me, coming off the bench last night and doing his thing.
Bing bang.
Last night, 17 points, 6 of 11 shooting, 5 of 8 from 3. This, Evan's a guy who has been out of the rotation all year. Doesn't play unless one of our wings goes down. And usually when he does play, he doesn't play too well. Let's be real, he hasn't. But last night, on short notice, he gave you production. Valuable production, if you know what I'm saying. But no, he too, like Deuce McBride, showing up in the fourth quarter with 9 points, 3 big triples. With less than 9 minutes left, the Knicks are down a point. Brunson makes the swing pass. Fournier from the weak side wing knocks down the 1 dribble step back triple. He flashed his range a little later in the period with that 28, 29-foot jumper. Right? Makes it 91-84 Knicks. And then with 4:45 to play, off of a Brunson driving kick, Fournier knocks down his 5th triple of the night to put the Knicks up 94-88. Big time shooting. And I've been thinking, man, I don't like that I've been thinking this, but I've definitely been thinking this. And I want to know what you guys think. But let's say the Knicks hang on to Fournier and they can't move him this week. Is it crazy? I think it's crazy because I bit my tongue the other night when I wanted to rip him. But if they hang on to him, do you think that Thibodeau should use him for a few minutes a night off the bench? Nothing crazy, but just, as that 9.5 man, so to speak. Maybe give him 9-10 minutes a night. If Deuce is bricking, maybe some nights you go to Evan when you need the offense, right? If you need the defense, you get Deuce in. Because the Knicks do need some shooters, right? They need spacing out there. It can't always be Grimes, and we've seen Grimes hasn't exactly been lights out this season from 3. He's been up and down. I don't know. It's just a thought. If they keep him, you might as well use him as a weapon. If anything, it'll help build up his trade value for the summer when they move him then. But again, I never really believe too much in trade value and all that when it comes to veterans. But I don't know. If he's on the roster after whenever February 9th is, then maybe extend the rotation a bit and see what you can get out of him. I know Tibbs probably won't do that. He's set on his 9 men. He's stubborn. I get that. But just a thought. And the other game ball last night, I want to give this to Julius Randle, because I thought Randle wasn't great, but he was the least worst among the starters.
Bing bang.
24 points for Julius last night. 9 rebounds, 7 assists, 8 of 19 shooting, 7 of 8 at the line, 33 minutes played. He was so-so. He was up and down. But again, I guess the worst of the 5. Maybe right with Brunson. Or the best of the 5, sorry. But, I gave it to him because he did show up down the stretch with a couple of big-time shots. He had the floater going all night. Couple in the first quarter, which you rarely see. But in the fourth quarter, in crunch time, 2 minutes left. The Knicks are up 8. Randle spins off Melton, does kind of a Euro move to get into the lane, and he throws up a tough runner off the top of the window to put the Knicks up 10 points for some breathing room. Big shot. And then on the next drive down, I believe, Philly was within 8 again, and he's in single coverage on Tucker, uses his strength to drive right on him, and then flicks up a runner when he's in the middle of the lane again, bounces off the rim, and falls into the net. So I thought he showed up in the clutch. It was nice to see. He attacked the basket a lot, got to the free throw line, was 7 of 11 from 2-point land, and he made some nice passes too, some nice kickouts. The only bad part of his game was some of those passes were wild, so he finished with 3 turnovers. He was also a terrible 1 for 8 from 3. And I thought his defense, particularly on Tucker, but some on Harris too, could have been a lot better. Just pretty effortless and dumb. He helped off of Tucker a few times in the first quarter, and when you're playing against James Harden, who's a very quick passer, he gets everybody involved. You can't do that, and that was at least 3 times. And then there was the open 3-point ball, I think early third quarter, where Tucker was weak side in the left corner, and Randle wandered all the way down into the opposite baseline for whatever reason. And that forced Jericho, I think it was, to help and pick up Randle's rotation. And, also on Harris, on the 3-point line, you just saw him cheating off him for no reason. So I didn't love his defense, but, again, I should point out that he was the least worst, him and Brunson. You could have gave either one the game ball, but I just gave it to Randle for the shots at the end. I did like the leadership that he showed with Grimes. There was a possession where Grimes passed up a 3-point look, and then Randle tells him afterwards, you got to take that, dude. And then on the very next time down, Grimes knocks down a catch-and-shoot three, no hesitation. And we've seen that competitiveness between the two before. Randle's kind of been that veteran mentor, and Grimes is the younger sophomore player. So it was good to see that. But all in all, yeah, it was an okay game from Randle, nothing more. And we're going to head to break. I want to talk about the fourth quarter offense last night when we returned from break. So we'll talk a little bit on that. Stay with us. Be right back. We also have a website now for BD4. If you go to BD4blog.com, you can find the blog, the podcast links, and also where to find me on social media. Just go to BD4blog.com. All right. Welcome back to the show. Episode 476 of the podcast. I am your host, RJ Carbone. So, I thought the fourth quarter offense last night was actually pretty good. The Knicks scored 32 points, but they had 7 assists on 9 makes. Very good. Just 2 turnovers in the period. You had guys passing the ball out there. You had Brunson making a lot of passes, of course, but Grimes, Fournier, Hartenstein. So even though they only had 21 assists on the night, they did move the ball down the stretch to get their offense. And that's good to see for me because, neither Brunson or Randle really had it going from the field last night. I think they combined to shoot 40% together. So instead of just forcing isolation sets with them in half-court offense, the ball was kind of being distributed pretty evenly. You look at the total field goal attempts in the fourth quarter. Randle had 4, Brunson 2, but Fournier 5, Deuce McBride 5, couple for Obi, who also got to the free throw line, so did Sims. So I liked it. I don't hate the ISO ball if Brunson or Randle has been hot the entire game. Right? That's fine. But when they aren't, I prefer to move the ball. If Brunson has those longer wing defenders on him, if they're switched onto him in the fourth quarter, which we've kind of been seeing that lately. Batum, we saw LeBron at the end of the game. We saw Thibodeau at times last night. If that's a thing where they put the long wing defender onto Brunson, then I also think we should be moving away from the ISO ball too. I just think the more we do that, the more we avoid those turnovers, which, we know that Brunson and Randle can be prone to turning it over in the fourth quarters. We can avoid, forced shots, because both of that happened with Brunson in the overtime game against the Clippers, right? You had the early turnover in OT, and you had him getting blocked by Nick Batum as well. And I know that he and Randle are ball-dominant guys. I get that. But it's not like they can't play off the ball. They can play off ball. Brunson can play off the basketball some. He played his entire career up to this season off the basketball with Luka Doncic. And Luka, there's nobody more ISO heavy than Luka in today's game. He's a great passer, and he's a very good spot-up shooter. He's 46% in catch and shoot this season. And all but 2 of those attempts are from 3. He's also a 48% shooter when he's taken 1 dribble or less. Randle's 34% on his catch and shoot threes, which is the exact same number as his pull-up three-point percentage. It's actually 1 percentage higher. And he shoots 47% with 1 dribble or less. Point being, neither of those two gets significantly worse with their efficiency when they're asked to score without the basketball, without ISOing. So it can happen. You've got Quickly, who can also be that ball handler. He can help you out. He plays in these fourth quarter lineups a lot with those two. You've got Grimes, who's always spotting up non-ball side. I think it'd be less predictable to mix in some team-oriented offense late in the game. And last night, I thought we saw more of that. I thought it was good, so I was glad to see. Now, of course, again, if guys aren't on, it's harder to trust them. If Brunson or Randle are on, it's more acceptable. But I just think it's going to become predictable sooner rather than later. And in the playoffs, I don't know that we can rely on that till we get there. But speaking of Jalen Brunson, I did like what I saw from him last night. He was okay. Just like Randle, he was the least worst of the starting five. 21 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 turnovers, 6 of 16 shooting, 1 of 3 from 3, 8 of 12 at the free throw stripe. Again, some big plays down the stretch from him. Nice passing. He drew a lot of contact in the fourth quarter to stop the clock and help the Knicks take that momentum. But yeah, the shot was off. Whatever. It doesn't happen too often. Whatever. The rest of the starting unit, Grimes, he wasn't on point either. The 3-point ball was 1 for 5, but he was attacking closeouts. Philly was running him off that 3-point line, but he was scoring at the rim in transition, making cuts to the basket, facilitating off the drive. And again, he helped slow down James Harden, giving him trouble throughout the night. He had a tough time avoiding foul trouble himself. He had 4 fouls. But it is James Harden, and he's pretty good at doing that. Quickly was off, but whatever, he'll be fine. He's been so hot. He was bound to slow down a little bit lately. But, hey, listen, I want to make this clear and to the point. I understand that you guys, a lot of Knicks fans, I don't want to say you guys because who knows who's listening, but a lot of Knicks fans like to criticize Thibodeau. I get it. It is the cool thing to do. That's what this generation likes. So we hop on the bandwagon with everybody else on Twitter. It's easy. It gets you likes. It gets, makes you feel correct, validated, all that. I understand it. But at the end of the day, he deserves credit. Because when you think about it, the Knicks have gathered some pretty big-time wins now. They've beaten Boston, Miami, Philly twice, and also Cleveland, for that matter, 2 times. So those are 6 wins against 4 teams in the top of the conference. All of them in the all-important top 6 seeds. The only playoff teams in the Eastern Conference that the Knicks have not beaten, Milwaukee and the Nets. And they came very close to beating those teams too. And now who knows where the irrelevant Nets are going to be, after this whole Kyrie Irving thing. Got to see what happens with Durant and Phoenix. For whoever. Lakers, I don't know. But to me, that's good coaching. Beating 4 of 6 teams at the top of the conference when you have a team without a superstar, a pretty average roster, and you have an injury to a key player twice on the year in Robinson, and you're still competing, practically competing in every single game. That's good coaching. It's good coaching, whether you want to admit it or not. That's good coaching. A lot of the reason the Knicks lose these games is probably because they don't have a star. Right? We could chalk it up to coaching this and that, but we just don't have a star. Those timely rebounds that we miss, the free throws, the missed shots, the late turnovers may not be much of an impact if they had a 30 points per game guy. But this team does well with what they have. They scratch and claw. They're a young roster with some talent, and they're doing everything I expected with what they were given. So as I said, I am not stressing, or I try not to. But yeah, you guys asked for the kids. They're getting minutes. You guys asked for the bench to get more burn. Well, they've been getting those opportunities lately because they're finally earning it. Obi last night, 14 minutes. 23 minutes for Deuce McBride, 24 minutes for Evan Fournier, 26 minutes for Isaiah Hartenstein. Fournier, Deuce, and Hartenstein played the entire fourth quarter. Obi played about 7 minutes of it. So, they got their run last night. And, yeah. We got a big one up next now. Because the Knicks have an opportunity now to pick up a freebie against a pretty terrible Magic team before it gets tough again. You got Orlando tomorrow night. That needs to be a win. Got to take that. It's a team at the bottom of the conference. But then after that, you've got a tough back-to-back with Philly and Utah. You're going to Philadelphia, then you're coming back home to host the Jazz. So, listen, they're going to lose games, man. Like, they're going to lose games. You know, I know we don't like to hear that, but let's be straight. It's a very difficult thing to do to run off 8-9 wins in a row more than twice in a season for the majority of teams. Right? So keep in mind that this Knicks team is a 500 team. Probably not getting that streak again. You had the 8 games. You had the 5-gamer. There's a good chance we go win-loss, win-loss. You know? I know we like to live and die so much on each game, but we got to ground ourselves a little bit and realize who we are. Win-loss, win-loss, win-win, loss-loss-loss, win-loss, win. Like, it's just going to be back and forth. It'll be like this until the Knicks can find themselves that superstar caliber player to come in here, establish some consistency, and solidify things. And that is the best way, in my opinion, to operate this franchise right now. No knee-jerk moves where we're throwing away assets for above-average players like OG to get us, to Game 7 of a first round? Maybe into the second if we're very lucky? No, I want to do smaller moves at the moment. Nothing else. Save for the superstar. Because this is no contender right here. No OG Anunoby is going to help us contend. If Sadiq Bey comes at a fairly relatively cheap cost, then yeah. You know? But until then, until we get the superstar available, buckle up. I'm just saying. Get used to the inconsistency. Get used to the trade noise, the slander on RJ, on Randle, the fire Thibodeau chance. It's all going to be here. It's all going to be here. But we just got to ground ourselves and realize at the end of the day, the players do play the game, and we don't have that much talent. We don't have a star, and we have some decent players, but it doesn't really go above that. So get used to it. This is who we are until we get that guy. But hey, it was fun to see the Eagles suck chants out last night in the Garden. That was awesome. That was awesome. But no, that's it. That's it. Let's wrap it up with our trivia when we return. Stay with us. We will be right back. Studio 69 Productions is a podcast production agency created by Leo Rodriguez to allow content creators to market their podcast. It's an online platform that will market your podcast or any other project that you're working on. Get in touch with Leo Rodriguez from Studio 69 Productions. You can find Studio 69 Productions on Instagram at Studio69NJ. Studio 69 Productions, where dreams are heard and born. All right, episode 476. Welcome back to the show. Thanks for tuning into the podcast. Our NYY-NYK-MMA Trivia Question of the day for episode 476 is, in 1992-93, did John Starks' three-point percentage take a 5% increase or decrease in the postseason? All right, in 1992-93, did John Starks' three-point percentage take a 5% increase or decrease in the postseason? Let me know the answer wherever you can reach me. One final time, in 1992-93, did John Stark's three-point percentage take a 5% increase or decrease in the postseason? And if you get the answer correct, I'll give you a shout out on the next show. But I think that's it. I appreciate you tuning in, listening to my BS. The Knicks pick up the big win, perhaps their biggest game of the season. They crawl back to defeat Philly, down by 21 in the first quarter, but they pull away, crawl back behind some strong bench play. Episode 476 is in the books. I will see you in episode 477. Talking Knicks Magic. And that will be out either tomorrow night, Tuesday night, or most likely Wednesday. But this episode is in the books, episode 476. That's all I've got. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Later. This episode was brought to you by Anchor.